Hello everyone, this is Mahanur Ali and welcome to my channel Learn with Ease. In today's video, we are going to learn about a very important topic of neuroanatomy which is known as the Circle of Willis. Circle of Willis is basically going to form the blood supply of the brain, and the continuous blood supply to the brain is of utmost importance because the brain has high metabolic demands for oxygen and glucose. Now let us learn a bit about the arteries which are going to contribute to the formation of the Circle of Willis. These arteries are going to be the paired internal carotid arteries and the paired vertebral arteries. Now let us learn very briefly about the internal carotid artery and the vertebral artery. A very brief recall. We have the left ventricle. From the left ventricle arises the aorta. From the arc of aorta, we have three arteries which are going to arise. These are the left common carotid, the brachiocephalic trunk, and the left subclavian artery. Our brachiocephalic trunk is later on going to give off the right common carotid and the right subclavian artery. Now, both the common carotid arteries are going to split in order to form the external carotid artery and the internal carotid artery. What concerns us with regards to Circle of Willis are the right and the left internal carotid arteries. That's it. These two internal carotid arteries are going to form the anterior part of the circulation of the Circle of Willis. As you can see in this particular diagram, we have the internal carotid arteries, and these internal carotid arteries are going to form the anterior part of the circulation of Circle of Willis. Now, moving on to the vertebral arteries. Again, as I've mentioned already, that from the aorta directly we have the left subclavian artery, whereas the brachiocephalic trunk is going to give off the right subclavian artery. Vertebral arteries are the branches of the subclavian arteries. So right vertebral artery is going to arise from the right subclavian, and the left vertebral artery is going to arise from the left subclavian. Done. Moving on to our topic of the day, which is Circle of Willis. What exactly is the Circle of Willis? This Circle of Willis is a six-sided polygon which is formed by two major arteries and their branches, and this Circle of Willis is formed around a particular region in the brain which is known as the interpeduncular fossa. This fossa, that is the Circle of Willis, lies in the interpeduncular subarachnoid cistern. Done. Now, let us see how exactly do these two major arteries combine with each other in order to form the Circle of Willis. This is going to be very simple. Just follow me, okay? First of all, we've got the right and left vertebral arteries over here. These vertebral arteries, as we've read, have arisen from the subclavian artery, and these are going to be situated posteriorly. So imagine this is the anterior part, this is the posterior part, and this is the inferior surface of your brain. Okay, so we've got the vertebral arteries which are going to fuse with each other. We'll learn about the branches later. We've got the right and left vertebral arteries which are going to fuse with each other. Let me just draw a small diagram on the side. We've got We've got the right and the left vertebral arteries which are going to fuse with each other in order to form the basilar artery. This basilar artery is later going to terminate and form the right and the left posterior cerebral artery. This is the right and the left posterior cerebral arteries are the terminal branches of the basilar artery. Done. This is with regards to the posterior circulation. Now let us learn a bit about the branches of the vertebral arteries and the basilar artery. First of all, the vertebral artery. This is going to give off a branch which is known as the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Obviously, vertebral artery is situated posteriorly, so this is going to be a posterior, and also it is going to be inferiorly, this branch is going to arise, hence it's known as inferior. This is going to supply to the cerebellum, so posterior inferior cerebellar artery. Then we've got two branches arising from the vertebral arteries which are going to fuse with each other in order to form the anterior spinal artery. Next, obviously we have our basilar artery which is going to form when both the vertebral arteries fuse with each other. Now, From the basilar artery, we have certain branches arising, like, first of all, here we have a branch which is the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. We already learned about the posterior inferior cerebellar artery right over here. Now we are learning that from the vertebral artery arises posterior inferior cerebellar artery. From the basilar artery arises the anterior inferior cerebellar artery. Another branch which is going to arise from the anterior inferior cerebellar artery is the auditory artery, also known as the labyrinthine artery. A few more branches arising from the basilar artery are going to be the pontine arteries, and also another branch which is known as the superior cerebellar artery. Inferior cerebellar artery had an anterior and posterior parts. Then we have the superior cerebellar artery right over here. The basilar artery is going to terminate into the posterior cerebral arteries, right and left posterior cerebral arteries. Done. This is with regards to the posterior circulation. So vertebral arteries fuse with each other in order to form the basilar artery. Basilar artery is going to terminate into the posterior cerebral arteries. Done. Now, here we have our internal carotid artery. This internal carotid artery is going to give off three branches. These are the middle cerebral artery, the anterior cerebral artery, and also the posterior communicating artery. Okay, again, the internal carotid artery is going to give off the anterior cerebral artery, the middle cerebral artery, and the posterior communicating artery. Now, in between the anterior cerebral arteries on both the sides is another vessel which is known as the anterior communicating artery. Okay, so as I've already mentioned that the circle of Willis is a six-sided polygon. So as you can see in this diagram right over here, this is a six-sided polygon. One, two, three, four, five, six. Done. Okay. Now let us try to visualize that how exactly does this circle of Willis is situated in our brain. As you can see in the diagram given over here, this is the inferior surface of our brain. Okay. Then this is going to be the posterior part. This is going to be the anterior part. So here you've got the medulla oblongata, the pons, and the remaining parts of the brain, as you can see right here in this diagram. Okay, so you've got your two vertebral arteries, as you can see right over here. These two vertebral arteries are going to fuse with each other in order to form the basilar artery. Basilar artery is going to ascend in the midline and later on terminate by forming the two posterior cerebral arteries. Then you have the ICA somewhere over here, which is going to give off three branches: the middle cerebral artery, the anterior cerebral artery, and the posterior communicating artery. In between the two anterior cerebral arteries, we have the anterior communicating artery. Why is there a need for this kind of polygon in the blood supply of our brain? The functional importance of the circle of Willis is that I'm pretty sure many of us have heard that in our families, somebody might have a family or friends, somebody has suffered from a stroke, right? What exactly is the stroke? And it's so basically this anastomose, or these many branches of the circle of Willis, are sort of a defense mechanism, so that just in case if one of these arteries gets blocked, there are alternate routes for the blood to reach that particular part of the brain. So the functional importance of circle of Willis is basically it provides alternate routes for blood supply in case of blockade in one of these arteries. With this, we conclude our video of circle of Willis. I really hope that you people find this video helpful for you all. So please do like, comment on my videos, and do share this video with your friends. I hope this helped you all. Have a very nice day.